I was not prepared. Like, I really didn't know it was gonna cost this much money. Don't let anyone tell you that you can't do something. You decide what you can and can't do. Hey y'all, so I just came from the pool and it was great. It was great. The last video that I made, I didn't introduce myself. I'm Sydney, and I make videos about Jesus and my journey in med school, through med school, getting into med school, all that jazz. So today I want to record a video talking about things that I wish that I knew before applying to medical school. So let's jump right in. The first thing and the biggest thing is the cost of everything. Like, the cost was just so unreasonably high. And I think that this is not just an applying to medical school thing, but like medical school itself is crazy expensive. All of the exams that you have to take are crazy expensive. It's just like, it's really made for people who are wealthy. And like, if you're not wealthy, it's kind of like, good luck. That's really the vibe that this whole process gives. And like, I don't want to say that to like scare people, because there's obviously resources and things to like make ends meet. But it's just like, I didn't expect it to cost as much money as it does, or as it did, because I applied, whatever. Point is, it was really expensive to apply to medical school. And so I just want to like make that clear. And I honestly, like, I'll go through numbers. Like, I don't even mind like sharing how much I spent on different things, because I feel like I would have wanted to have the transparency of like knowing exactly what I was getting into before I was getting into it. Because I feel like as I was applying, it was kind of just like, okay, this is something that I want to do. I want to do this forever. Like, I'm gonna, you know, like, I was just thinking about the application. I wasn't necessarily thinking about how much it cost. And I mean, I knew how much it cost to apply to college. But this is like way worse. Way worse. So let's break it down. So applying, okay, so first you do like your primary application, right? And actually, no, let's back up. Let's start with the MCAT. The MCAT is $300 and some odd. I took the MCAT twice because I didn't love my first score. I honestly didn't love my second score, but I got into medical school, so don't let it, that's another thing we'll get to later, but don't let anyone tell you that scores keep you from medical school. So I took the MCAT twice, so I spent almost $700 taking the MCAT. The MCAT, also, you need to prepare and study. Obviously, it's a 7.5-hour test. You can't just walk in there blind. And so it depends on what study resources you decide to purchase, but obviously, like, those things cost money. Courses are like $1,000 sometimes. Like, I didn't do a course. I did mostly like self-studying, and I bought all of the AMC materials, and I bought all of the like the UWorld question bank. And I bought some tests from, it's Blueprint, but I don't know if Blueprint is the new name or the old name. But anyways, they had like pretty reliable tests, I guess you could say. And so the total cost of that was another, somewhere between, because UWorld alone is like $360. So it was somewhere between like $300 and another $600, maybe $800 on study materials. Which obviously is not cheap. Okay, I need to get over. Please hold. Okay, so that was not cheap. Like, that was an investment, okay, on top of the test itself twice. So what are we at? Let's go with the upper limit of everything, just so we can, you know, make a budget that maybe has cushion at the end. So 700 plus another 8 is what? 8, 9, 10, we are ready to submit our primary applications or start filling it out. So there's like a base, like just blanket fee to like fill out the application period, and then every additional school that you send on top of that is another like $45, and I think the blanket fee is $175. It's been like a year and a half since I've done this, so don't quote me on these numbers. I will check them before I upload this and they're, you know, put those numbers in. But so I applied to somewhere between 26 and 28 schools, and I feel like that was pretty like standard. Like I feel like people apply to like 15 to 30. Like I don't know, I guess it depends on like your scores, your, you know, what are your reaches, what are your safeties, whatever. I applied to a lot of schools. I feel like most people do. You definitely apply to more schools than you do in college, unless like you literally know someone who can get you in at a school that you definitely want to go to. Like, I mean, I don't know, like most people apply to a lot of schools, right? So the cost for my primary applications was between $900 and $1,100. I don't really remember. So that cost was insane to me for like applications, and you can only go to one school, right? So that was a lot, but it's obviously like it's harder to get into med school than it is to get into college, just because like of sheer numbers. Like a med school class is on average what, 120 people, 150 people, depending on where you're going. And some schools even smaller. The school that I'm going to is a little bit larger, but it's like it's generally going to be under 300 people, right? So that's not a lot of people at all, and thousands of people are applying. So the pool of competition is a lot greater than it is in college, for most schools. So I tried to apply to a lot of schools so I could give myself a better chance, obviously. And I think a lot of people do that. So that's another $1,100 on top of the $1,500. So now we're at $2,600 just for MCAT and primaries. Like I haven't even gotten secondaries. So now, so your primary application, if you don't know, is like, basically think like Common App for college. It's like the one main application that you're sending out to every school. So this is like general information, your work, your extracurriculars, your personal statement, your grades, your MCAT score, all that general stuff, right? That's your primary application. Your secondary applications are what, after you send this primary application, the schools will review it, and if they decide they want to send you a secondary application, you'll get that, and that's school specific. So these applications have like additional essay questions pertinent to the school, whatever additional questions they might want to ask you, you know, just getting to know you a little bit more. So every single secondary application costs more money. They're like between $60 to $100 per application. I think I did, a lot of schools will automatically send you a secondary if you're like compliant or whatever, your application's verified, and then some other schools you get one if they like review your application, they decide to send one to you. So I think like, honestly, like I probably did at least 20 secondary applications, at least. And so my secondary applications were another, this was even worse than the applications. These might have been $2,000 alone, like just secondaries. And maybe that's a stretch, but again, like I would rather give you the stretch number than like play you. So if I did 20 applications and each one was like, each one was $80, that's $1,600, right? Yeah. So somewhere between $1,000 and $2,000 on secondaries. So let's go with $1,600 as our guess. So we were already at 26. Now we're at $3,200. We're at $3,200, and all we've done is send in applications. And you can only go to one school. Don't forget that. So on top of that, some schools, a growing number of them, it seemed like to me, are now requiring judgment tests. So they're like situational judgment tests. So these exams, like the Casper test, like, I don't know, somehow they come up with some system where they can test your judgment, and like, I don't know how you test that in a standardized test, but whatever. That costs another, I think I spent like $70, 70, 80, I don't know, $175. So now we're at $32.75 just to apply to go to one school. And by the grace of God, everything was virtual interview wise, but in a non-COVID world, all of these interviews would have probably been in person, and you had to travel there, do your interviews. Like, I didn't have travel costs, so I don't want to give numbers for that, but like, it would probably be another $1,000 at least to do all this traveling. So it's really expensive to apply. And I would say, like, if there's any way for you to save for it, or you know, look for scholarships and things, like, just be prepared, you know. And I feel like I was not prepared. Like, I really didn't know it was going to cost this much money, and my parents helped me a little bit with maybe like a third of the cost, which was so gracious of them, but the other 2/3 I paid for myself. And I also, like, you know, like, a lot of people don't have parents who can help them at all. But I would say, like, don't get discouraged by it. I understand how, like, scary it can be to go into something like this financially serious. Most people are, you know, pretty young going into medical school. Like, it's scary. But if your goal and your dream is to be a doctor, like, don't let the money discourage you. And I know that that's way easier said than done. And even, like, right now, like, I literally freak out, like, every couple weeks about how much, like, money this is costing. But it's like, it's been my dream since I was a kid. So it's like, I can't let the prospect of money hinder me. Like, somehow, some way, God's gonna work it out. So go for it. If it's your goal, go for it, and don't give up on it. The next thing I want to talk about is submitting early. I think I submitted pretty early. Like, I submitted maybe like the second week of June, but I could have submitted in May. And the earlier you submit, the better, because one, your application has to get verified. Like, they basically, AMCAS like reviews your whole application and they verify it. So you want to have your application done and ready to go as soon as possible, because every single person's application has to get verified. So they have to review every single one. Okay, my phone, I mean, not my phone, my camera died, and all I have is my phone on me, so, like, the quality is gonna be different, but this is all we got, so I'm sorry. Okay, so what was I talking about? Oh, submitting early. So yeah, submit early, because if you're at the back of the line, like, I mean, you're at the back of the line, you know what I mean? Like, it's gonna take longer. And at the time that I submitted, I think it took, like, it was saying, like, it was gonna take like 6 weeks for applications to be verified, and that's about how long it took. And your application, you're not getting any secondaries until you're verified. So it's really important to submit early, because you have a better chance. Like, you're at the top of the pile right now, you know what I'm saying? And you want to get yourself out there. Like, I wouldn't, like, I feel like when I submitted, it wasn't bad. Like, if I did that again, like, I think I'd be fine. I mean, it turned out fine. But I wouldn't, like, wait to submit till, like, August or something. Like, you need to have it in as early as you can. And I'm not saying, like, break your back to get it turned in the first day that the thing opens, but once it opens, like, that should kind of light a fire under your butt to, like, wrap it up, finish it up, get it done. Put the finishing touches on it, have the last people, you know, review your materials and turn it in. It helps you. It really just, it helps you in the long run to have it in on time. Or not really on time, because it's, like, technically rolling, but, you know, have it in early and have it ready to go. Okay, so the next thing is that when you're writing your application, you need to find a way to make yourself engaging. You need to find a way to keep someone who's reading applications after application after application, like literally thousands of applications. You need to find a way to make them engaged in what you're talking about, because everyone is the same. And I mean, not quite literally everyone is the same, but everyone is pretty much the same, right? Like, everyone has done community service, everyone has shadowed, everyone has some story about why they wanted to be a doctor since they were a kid. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, these general things that drive you to do medicine and to become a doctor, almost everyone is going to have a similar story. So what about you makes you unique? What about you is different from everyone else? When you write your personal statement, you need to tell a story, right? If I'm reading 1,000 essays and everyone is like, I think medicine is so cool and I want to help people and that's why I want to be a doctor, why would I pick anyone? Like, what about you sticks out to me that makes me go, oh, I want to interview him, I want to interview her? Like, you need to keep people engaged. The way that you would write an essay in like high school, college, whatever, and tell a story, you need to tell a story. Don't just talk about yourself in a way that's boring. Don't list off your resume. Like, they can read that. A lot of schools ask you to submit a resume anyway. Like, don't do that. Don't just go through your work and your activity section and rewrite that in your personal statement. It's not interesting and nobody cares. Like, to be frank, like, honestly. You need to find a way for me to stop and pause and be like, I'm hooked. I'm really interested in this person. I'm really interested in their why. Because think about it. You're all fighting for 80 seats, 100 seats. And that's not to say that, you know, everyone doesn't deserve a seat. Absolutely you do. You know, if you're going about this because this is your passion, you know, not just because like, oh, I want money, whatever. But there aren't that many seats, right? And so how are you going to make yourself stand out so someone really wants to give you a seat? Okay, so don't just tell some bland, boring story that everyone can tell. Don't tell some story that I can Google. Make yourself stand out. There's things about you that are super unique to you. Not that literally you are you and that's your superpower. Like, nobody else is you. Nobody else has lived through the same experiences as you. No one has the same exact life as you. So capitalize off of that. Tell us something that we have not heard yet. Okay? Another thing is organization just throughout the process. I think the most helpful thing that I did was I kept like a Google spreadsheet, or not a spreadsheet, but like, well, okay, no, I had a spreadsheet and a Google Doc. So on my spreadsheet, I had like the school, like how much it cost, where it was, their median or mean, I don't really remember which one, for their like MCAT, their GPAs. I had, if they had like a master's program in public health, that was something I was thinking about. If they had like whatever little things that I was interested in, if they had these things at the school, deadlines for like if they for the application itself, because not every school is due at the same time. I had information on like if they required Casper or another situational judgment test, the format of the interview, like if it was, you know, if we had that information, did I complete my secondary already, you know, anything that I could possibly think of to keep track of was on that spreadsheet. Then I had a Google Doc where I wrote every single essay for literally every single thing. Every single essay is on one Google Doc, and I used the like table of contents thing on the side, and that allowed me to like navigate it easily, because obviously, one, if I applied to almost 30 schools, that's ridiculous to shift through. But once you get secondaries, you're getting multiple essays for each school. A lot of them are pretty similar, so like you can start writing one thing and kind of tailor it to something else for a lot, but there's some that are very unique, and so I just kept that going. And so if I did have one that was similar, it was helpful, because I have like, okay, I have these 3 different essays that I could pull from, and now boom, this essay is basically done. But it also allowed me to see, you know, what works, what doesn't work, what essays are different, what essays are the same. Just keep yourself organized. It's a lot going on. It's a lot of information. It's a lot. So whatever organization system works for you, but make sure you find a way to keep yourself organized throughout the entire process, because one, it's a long process. Okay? Like, it's a long process. Starts in April and it ends like the next year. Even if you get in, like, the process, it's ongoing, honestly. So that's one. But two, it just will give you some peace of mind to have good organizational skills during this, because, like, you're writing so much. You also you have a life. Like, you can't just stop your life for an entire year because you're applying to medical school. So it makes everything in life a lot easier when you keep yourself organized. Okay. Briefly, I'll touch on, like, Casper and, like, other situational judgment tests. But basically, like, yeah, some schools require them. The Casper test is like a 2 or 3 part thing. I don't know. I don't really know how you would prepare for a judgment test. Like, I feel like you either have good judgment or you don't. On the test thing, they're like, oh, you can prepare for it. Like, here's how you can prepare, whatever. I personally just think you either have good judgment or you don't. Like, I don't know. I don't think you can learn it. You can study for that. Like, maybe I'm wrong. But that test was like, it didn't take very long. I did it on my computer. Like, it was some multiple choice stuff, some, like, pick a scenario type thing. Like, how would you respond in this situation? Whatever. I think it's really subjective. I think it's honestly a really terrible, like, mode of measurement. But whatever. Standardized testing in general, we can have discourse that is a poor choice of measurement. But anyways, so there's that, and like I said, it costs money. You send it to whatever schools require it. There's like a list of all the schools that require it. What else? Morehouse, that is a school that I applied to that had their own situational judgment test. Or, well, no, it wasn't their own. It was like the one that was through AMCAS. If I remember correctly, there was just kind of like a multiple choice thing, like picking in situations like what you would do type vibe. I didn't have any other schools that required that. Also, I want to say I didn't apply to Texas schools because I didn't feel like doing a separate application. So for Texas schools, you don't go through AMCAS. It's like, I don't know the acronym. Okay, the sun's doing its little sun thing. Super cute, but I can't see myself. I was going to apply to Texas schools because I was like, Texas would be cool, but I didn't feel like doing a whole separate application. Like, the letters of rec are different. It's just, it's a whole thing. And like, I didn't feel like asking for teachers to do this, that, and the third. School was ending. Like, it is, for me, it wasn't important enough to do. If you want to apply to Texas schools, by all means, do it. Go for it. They have great schools out there. But it just wasn't necessary for me or worth it. And like, I'm staying on the East Coast. Like, so it would have been pointless anyways for me. And also they have a huge preference for in-state students, which, again, don't let that discourage you if you really want to apply to a Texas school, but just something to be mindful of. That's all I'm going to say about Texas, because like I said, I didn't apply. I don't have any insight. I'm sorry if you came here looking for information on Texas schools. I just don't have it. So the next thing that I want to talk about is networking. While I'm not saying you cannot get into medical school without connections, I think we should not be blind to the fact that connections can really propel you. And that's not even just in medicine, that's in any field. And I don't think that connections take away from your achievements. Because if you have a connection, okay, well, besides people who, like, if you didn't take the MCAT and you got into medical school because so-and-so is the dean, well, we can't, that's just annoying that we can't even, you know what I'm saying, like, there's nothing that we can do about that. But if you have some adjacent connection and someone just happens to plug your name, they're obviously going to read through your material, and if your material is not where it needs to be, like, no one is going to, like, they're still not going to take a chance on you. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not saying, oh, you have a few bad grades, or like, no, I'm saying like you literally have like a 1.0, you got a 400 on the AMCAS. I don't even think that's possible. But like, you didn't do any community service, have never shadowed, and like, you did nothing basically. Like, obviously, like, okay, even if you got plugged, like, no one is gonna, that's ridiculous. But if you've done the work, and you know you've done the work, if someone sees that and you got your name pulled out of a pile, I don't think that that diminishes from your accomplishments, or that doesn't make you holier than thou, better than anyone. But you were sitting in a pile just like everyone else, and you know, someone took the time to go and pull you out. I just think that's something to like be mindful of and to be cognizant of. And again, I don't know how many times I'm going to say this, you don't need connections to get into medical school at all. You can absolutely get it on your own volition, but in any field, obviously connections and networking can help to propel you forward. Point blank, period. I really need some water. I low-key have a headache, but I'm not that far from home, so we're just gonna power through because I don't feel like digging in my bag to get water. Okay, I think this one is probably my favorite one to talk about. Your scores, your AMCAS score, your GPA, your individual grades, they matter, but not that much. Not the way that they're forced down everyone's throat to think that they matter. Okay? Obviously, you cannot go and fail every single class and expect a miracle. But you do not have to have grades or GPAs or MCAT within the high, almost unattainable, ridiculous school averages that these schools have. Yes, absolutely strive to do your best. Work really hard. Do not give up on yourself. Keep on pushing forward, but don't beat yourself up if you're not making the average score at XYZ school, or you're not excelling beyond that. You are doing great in your application. There's so much more to your application than a test score. So much more. If you have perfect scores and you have never done an extracurricular in your life, you're not going to get into medical school, because what substance is there to you besides you're book smart? A doctor is so much more than someone who is book smart. You need to be able to relate to your patients, care for your patients, have empathy, have cultural competence. A textbook cannot teach you that. So, yes, scores are important to an extent, but don't let that deter you from applying. Don't let that make or break your decision to try to become a doctor. If that's what you're passionate about, if that's your goal, if that's what you want to do, go forward no matter what. Stumbling blocks may happen, but don't stop until you are at your goal. My scores, if you looked at my application, you could argue that most of the schools that I applied to were reach schools. You could. The school that I'm going to, my scores are below the averages that they have. They just are. And I'm going to medical school. I still deserve to be there. I worked my tail off to get there. And I know that in school, I'm going to continue to work extremely hard, because this is the goal that I have. Don't let anyone tell you that you can't do something. You decide what you can and can't do. If you know in your heart that you can do this, you can achieve this goal, you go for it. Don't let some counselor tell you, oh, maybe you should try a different career path. Don't let your friends joke about you, sway you. Don't let anyone tell you you can't become a doctor if that's what you want to do. You can absolutely do it. And yeah, obviously, absolutely, you try your best at school, you try your best on the MCAT, you bolster your application with other activities that you are passionate about. Don't just do random stuff because you think it looks good, because it's obvious when you just do stuff like that. Everyone can read right through that. Things that you're passionate about, other extracurriculars, other activities, they don't all have to be related to medicine. Have a well-rounded application, and people want to know you. You have so much going for you with a well-rounded application. How can you be a great doctor that we don't yet have? Right? That's what they're looking for. That's what they're looking for. You don't need to be the same as everybody else. You don't need everyone. If everyone had the same AMCAS score and nobody had any personable skills, I mean, I certainly wouldn't want to go see a doctor like that. And you probably wouldn't either. There's more to you than a score or a number. So, if you took any exams or you got a test score that you were worried about, I don't care. Go to med school if you want to go to med school. Do not stop. I got a D in Calculus 2. I got a C in Psychology. I think I got a C plus in something. I don't even know. Point is, I'm going to medical school. A few bad grades are not going to make your application. Like, if you can learn from these things, this is how I grew from this is what I learned from this is how I moved forward, that speaks volumes. You keep pushing forward, and you don't stop until you decide to stop. Okay? Do not let a few stumbling blocks upend your goal. Stop your goal dead in its tracks. Do not let that happen. There is more to you. A well-rounded applicant is 1,000,000 times better than someone who is just smart on paper. You would never ever want to go to the doctor or be comfortable or trust a doctor who is not personable in the slightest, who cannot empathize with you, who has zero cultural competence, who has never ever given the time of day to an underserved community. You would never ever trust someone who is so callous about medicine or about their patients. You want someone who deeply cares. And like I said, that cannot be taught in a classroom, in a textbook, in your orgo class. I don't care if you got an A++ in orgo. That doesn't make you better than anyone. You need to be well-rounded. The last thing that I really want to say is, as I pull into my driveway, live your life while you apply, okay? Yes, dedicate time to your application. Yes, put your all into it and do your very best. But do not stop your life because you're applying to medical school. Like, they're going to ask you what you were doing during the time, between college and med school. You have to keep living. Even once you go to medical school, you can't just stop living. You can't, yes, you can have this passion and this drive for medicine, but you are going to burn out so fast if you completely give your soul to medicine. You're also going to have no levels, no layers to you, no character, just live your life. If you have other passions, pursue them. Call your friends, call your parents, call your siblings. Take time for yourself. Do things for yourself that you enjoy. And also turn in the best darn application that you possibly can. Okay? So, with that, I'm at my house. I'm sweaty and gross from the pool, so I need to shower. And I'll catch you guys in the next video. Good luck on your applications if you're applying to med school. You got this. And yeah, bye guys.